I'm thinking something like... Beautiful little angel.
Hello.
I'm so glad to see you.
You too. How have you been?
I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm good. I feel like we were talking about this. Everyone around me is going through such shit.
I know it is. I think it's astrological thing. Everything's people losing their shit.
Yeah, and I'm glad I can be like a hugger.
Yeah.
There's part of me. I don't know if I'm a hypochondriac or what, but people are losing their shit, and I'm like, oh, it's coming. Do I just think everything is good? Like, what am I
When's
missing?
the shoe dropping?
Yeah. Do you feel that at all?
I mean, I definitely feel it at times, and I just know life will happen that way, like the ebbs and flows of things. But I do think you can get to a point where you're like, you can handle it. It doesn't feel like a yeah. It just feels like, oh, this is some turbulent stuff to go through, but you're not losing your shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was meeting with someone where I was like, life is so good, isn't it? Like, it's such a treat. And she was like, well, it can be. And then it fucks you. And I was like, okay, well, I know.
Well, look back. I mean, I can look back, a few years ago, and it was kind of like the worst time of my life versus now it's good. But how many times can you look back and say, man, that was so tough. That was like some of the worst stuff I've had to deal with. Like you learn to me, I'm kind of like, well, here we go. We got to get through this.
That's so nice.
It's not fun, but
no, it's nice to feel that way.
To I don't know. Is your expectation that shit's never going to hit the fan?
No, but here's the thing. I'm learning that things can be good.
Yeah.
So I'm like, whoa, life can just be good. Mm-hmm. And it's been that way for a while. Mm-hmm. And so there's just a little bit of fear when everybody's like freaking out around me. And I'm like, oh God, the shoe's going to drop. But there's a balance I need to learn of like, it probably will drop in some way. Like I think of my mom or like, Well,
I think you, from what you shared with me, like you try to plan and anticipate for it to drop.
Yeah.
and I mean, I'm a 6 on the Enneagram. That's like my skill. is looking for where it can go wrong and trying to shift. But a big part of learning is like you forget like how much skill you learn by going through trauma. That like we do learn how to move through hard things when we heal from trauma. And so leaning more on that when it comes, I know how to move through it. But until then, I don't give it my energy.
Amazing.
Yeah.
That's that's a nice thing to like say to the self that's freaking out of like, babe, we're going to be, we got this. Mm-hmm. It's not going to be something we can't handle.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's huge. Look at Darcy's like, I'm right here. Angel. We had an amazing guest today.
So great.
Isn't she wonderful?
Her. Yes.
A bright sunshine angel.
Very bright. Yes. I loved it. Sweet energy.
Jamie Schreiner. So funny, dude. I met her in Chicago and I'm just so, every time when someone's going to be in a room and you're just like, thank God.
Yes.
Yeah. That's how I feel about her being on a lineup. I'm like, oh, thank God.
I love
that. Yeah.
That's so good.
Truly. How do you feel about the conversation?
Oh, I love how open she was. It, didn't have to push too hard to get into things, and so insightful in her healing process that she shared. I really appreciate that, and I think a lot of people will learn some of her wisdom as well.
I think so too. She had great lines, and I was like, oh, I want to remember that.
I know.
Yeah.
Like, y'all take notes as you listen.
Yeah. And thank you for
journals
listening.
out.
Yeah, definitely. While you drive. Thank you for listening, by the way.
Thank you.
We really appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
I love doing I know I say every time, but every time I mean it. I love this podcast.
I know. I love you too.
I love you so much. Enjoy, y'all.
Bye.
Jamie Bottle Pop.
Jamie Bottle Pop.
I'm so glad you're here.
I'm so excited to be here. I feel like you are a part of so many of my formative memories in like starting comedy in Chicago, and you don't live there anymore. So every time I get to see you, it's just truly a joy. And it's so nice to meet you.
You too.
Finally. It's great to be here.
You're such a good energy.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much. The opposite of the Damon energy at the Emerald City we were talking about before we were on air. I guess Amber met the devil himself.
Yeah,
once.
I saw the devil. It's really interesting to like say that when I was like, you guys ever seen the devil? And you both are like, yeah. You know, other people would be like, what are you talking about?
It's something you remember.
My ex?
That too.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, it's definitely, I don't know. You have a Christian background, right?
So the thing that's interesting is I actually was not raised with any religion, but then I went to a Lutheran middle school because my sister had a bad experience at the public school. And so my parents wanted to like protect me from the bad people at the public school. But then I had probably most of my like middle school trauma is from being in a hyper Christian place. As somebody with no religion prior, like that's the one kid that everybody's like, we're going to bully this kid.
Yes.
Like this outsider, this heathen. But it's like, I also, the height that I am now, so I'm like 5'9" for anybody who's listening or can't see how tall I am because I'm sitting down. I've been this tall since I was 11. So I go to this middle school. Wow. I'm like very tall. I've already started puberty. So it's just like recipe for like not fitting in with my peers.
Yes.
But yeah, and then it was like, I also had a crush on a boy in my show choir who was really into church. So I started going to youth group with him in high school, but then he ended up being gay. So that is
Doesn't
kind
that
of
happen
fun.
every time?
It really does.
That's
It's
how I
such a
met my
fun.
husband and then got divorced.
But he's not gay.
No, I don't think so.
Oh.
The jury's out.
We all a little bit though.
Yes.
I think so. That's as somebody right in the middle of the Kinsey scale, I'm like, come on, y'all.
I know.
Come on.
Try not to say anything when someone's like, yeah, no, I'm fully straight. I'm like, okay, I'm going to let you have that. But I don't believe you.
I don't either.
Yeah.
My favorite is I was like at a bar after a show with a bunch of like Chicago comics who are men who very much were like, no, I'm straight up. I'm like, but what about Chris Pine? Like I kept being like, what about, like, I just kept bringing up like the hottest actors I could think of. But what, you're telling me you're not going to get with Idris Elba? Like I don't buy it. I just don't believe you.
It's so true. So you were raised in the Midwest.
Yes.
And you made a comment. I was literally thinking about this, like, because we had someone else on from Ohio who was like, you know, we don't talk about Ohio, just like presses it down. But you made a comment about covering up your boobs.
Oh yeah, I think so. It's funny. Well, it's actually not funny. It's sad. I feel like that's a lot of what this podcast is about. So that's middle school that I went to. Pretty much every other day, I would get sent to the office by my male 7th grade teacher because like my chest was distracting class.
What?
Or like, and I would be wearing like a scoop neck t-shirt or like basically if I had anything that my neckline wasn't like here or higher, they were sending me down. So I'd be wearing a shirt that was like a scoop neck t-shirt or just like, you could tell I had boobs because I had boobs.
Yes.
And they would make me go and put something else on. And so I do think I feel like inherently weird about having cleavage. And also it's interesting, like, I think it was like I was doing a comedy club somewhere in Vegas and one of the comics on the show basically like implied about the way I dress that I got to be careful because if I'm too hot, it will take people time to realize that I'm funny. Like they won't inherently read me as capable of being funny if I dress in any way provocative or like with any cleavage or anything showing. So it's like, I think it's sometimes like really interesting because it's like shows like tonight where it's like an all female lineup and it's like a girl comedy show. I'm like, fuck it, we ball. I'm going to wear whatever I want.
Yes.
But then it's like, if I'm going into a professional space for the first time, which for you and I, like that's a comedy space, I'm very discerning about like, I'm still going to dress in my style, but I'm like, I don't want to be read the wrong way, which is like not something I think men in comedy have to think about ever, probably at all. Yeah. And I do think some of it is like what I've really experienced, and some of it is probably like the childhood internalized stuff of like, oh, I have a curvier body. I have the assets, as it were, that I have to be like mindful, be demure, be cutesy at how I'm showing up and presenting myself, which I think is not necessarily fair that it is that way.
Yeah. I mean, do you... Yeah, I guess you said you do show up to shows and thinking about that.
Yeah. And I try not to anymore, but I do think definitely probably like my first 4 or 5 years in, I definitely was thinking about it, like after getting that feedback.
Was the feedback from an old person?
Yes. You know, but I mean, that's why I'm like, I'm sorry, but you know. And then there's
Was it
also
a male?
Yes, it was an older male. And then there's also like, there's also the part of me that's like, I want to try to get on my soapbox and be like, I don't want to work with anybody who has a problem with how I dress anyway. But it's like, we all want to work though. We're all trying to like, so it's like, it's kind of towing that line of like, at what point am I compromising who I am and how I show up? I don't want to go there.
Right.
But if it's like just wearing a shirt where less of my boob is out to feel like I get more respect than I do it. And it's like, I wish it wasn't that way, but I can tell, and I've experienced in some spaces it is that way. Like I will be written off just because I have a kooky sense of fashion and weird tattoos.
Yeah.
And it's like, and it's not even just like the people who are booking comedy shows. Sometimes it's audiences as well. Like if I'm in a more Bible Belt part of America, I do try to like tone down my super, super colorful, hyper feminine clothing. Cause it's like, there are people in the audience who will not even give me a chance to make them laugh if I read too city slicker. I guess is the best way to put it. Like, they're like, oh, this is girl from Chicago. It's come here trying to change. I'm like, no, I'm just trying to make you have a good night.
Yeah.
Like I'm literally here because I want you to have a good time and I want to have a good time with you. So it's like, I do try to be mindful of where I'm performing.
Yeah. Sometimes I feel the fear from people and I like it a little bit.
Yeah. That's
What do you mean?
Like some audiences, I'll come out dancing and they'll be like, I'm scared.
Yeah. Okay.
They're like,
You have
women
to
don't
shake
do
it
this.
up a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, you're scared of me? And like, we're still going to have fun.
Yeah.
There's something in that where I'm like, it makes me
You're
excited.
like, challenge
Yeah.
accepted.
Yeah.
No, that's a great way to put it. It's like, it is a challenge and it is one that like, it's not a good compliment when a man's like, women aren't funny, but you are super like that's, I hear that and I'm like, oh, I want to walk in front of a trip. But it's like, I do, there is that motivation to like, I'm going to show you how funny we can be.
Yeah. Is your family, so your family's not conservative?
It's interesting because yes and no. So my parents are kind of very much like liberal leaning moderate, I would say. Like they're not radically liberal, but they are liberal. My mom's side of the family though, incredibly conservative. Like my aunt, my grandpa, my grandma when she was still alive, all very, very conservative from like central Indiana. But then my dad's side of the family, they all grew up on the south side of Chicago. So they're very much like liberal arts people.
Okay.
So I kind of got like one of my Thanksgivings, I get asked like, are women growing out their body hair because they're lesbians? Which I have to just like, I have to just take a breath and be like, where do I even start?
Yeah.
So that's one Thanksgiving. And then the other.
I love that. They're like, I have something to
They've
ask.
been holding that question written down in a notebook for
They've
6
been
months
waiting for me to come home
ask.
to ask. Yeah. And I'm like, oh my God. And the thing is like, yeah, so that's one side of the family. And then my dad's side of the family, you have like, people from all different races, all different sexualities, different gender expressions, all in one house, just eating vegan Christmas food because they make it all vegan and gluten-free because we have enough people in the family that have dietary restrictions. And so it's like, just vastly different. And I think that you can see that duality in how I am and how I like engage in the world, but it is a real, like in one day to go from that to that is all the holidays are always a whiplash because it's just so different. And they're both in Indiana. That's the thing too, is like you drive probably like 30 to 45 minutes from one Thanksgiving to the other. And you're just like, how is this possible in this small of a mile radius for these two and like my parents met, in high school and then they broke up and they got back together in college. And so it's just like, it's kind of interesting because my mom was like this small town girl that grew up on a farm. And then my dad had moved from California and he had long hair and he played in a band. So he was like the cool guy in a band that my mom wanted to get with. So it's just like, and his side of the family is the one that's very liberal, very artsy. Right. Her side is like the one that you got to be careful when you introduce them to new partners because you're just like, hey, let me just let you know, like these people have not left the state of Indiana. As far as I'm concerned.
Shit.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I say
they're
that
very curious about lesbians.
Yeah. And I mean, that was one that was like, when I was asked that, I was just like, I'm pretty sure it's an autonomy and like self-expression thing. I don't think it's just
hair grows on everyone.
Of them. Yeah, like every woman grows hair. So it's like if a woman has body hair, I don't think that that's like a sign that she's definitely a lesbian. She's like, well, she has a girlfriend and she has body. I'm like, yeah, it's not really like it's not like you're signaling I'm a lesbian. Like I was just I was one of those things. I was like, I'm embarrassed for you, but I also like you're my family member and I want to help you to not say things like this to people you don't know. Like, I know you saved this for me. And now I do feel bad mentioning it on a podcast that many people are going to watch and listen to, but it's like,
I've honestly heard worse, you know?
Yeah.
It's, you know, they're just noticing something.
Yes, and well-meaning and not understanding. And like, I don't want to type this into Google. So let me just ask my niece what, it was
I think it's cool they knew they could ask you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that they're even curious. That's good.
Yeah.
You mentioned bringing new partners around.
Yes.
So you've had a special wife material.
Yes.
Right.
Which the irony is that I got divorced. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have. But yeah, so I wrote a one-woman show. I hate that. But I had written a one-woman show called Wife Material, and I kind of started doing stand-up by way of that. Because when I was developing Wife Material, I was doing Shithole is a show in Chicago, RIP, that was like a variety showcase. So you could be a musical act, you could be a comedian, sketch, like whatever medium you were working with, as long as it was live performance, you could get up and do your 4 or 5 minutes. And so I had started doing these showcases trying to get people to come to my one-woman show. Yeah. And then in doing these showcases, I met a lot of comedians and found out about like open mics and things. And I just was like, you know what? Like, I just want to try it. Yeah. And then I think I just loved comedy more than I've ever loved anything and just kept doing it. But yeah, Wife Material was kind of just like,
I didn't know that.
A musical play. It was, the thing is, it was funny in certain moments, but then it was also dramatic. And I think that my big takeaway from when I did it was like, everybody who reviewed it, like I think one of my reviewers was like, this is the Hillary Rodham Clinton of shows. You either love it or you hate it. And I was like, what a divisive thing to say about something I wrote. But I do think it's really true, because it was like they couldn't put it in a box, because for the first probably 45 minutes, it was basically just like a stand-up routine with songs in between. But then I started getting into this really like dark and serious storytelling. And then it was funny again. And I think that they were just like,
taking them on a ride.
What just happened? Yeah, they're like they wanted it to be either one thing or the other thing, and because it was both, the people who didn't get it really didn't get it. But then I had a lot of people who were like, thank you so much for telling my story. And I think that was kind of what got exciting to me about stand-up as well, because stand-up is such a like male-dominated industry. Yeah. And so one of my favorite compliments I receive is just like, oh, thank you for like talking about my experience. And I think that that's part of why I do it. But yeah, Wife Material was like my first experience touring. And I think that's why even as a stand-up now, I still love touring so much, because it was like I would go and I would do these fringe festivals in the Midwest, and everyone in the audience would be like an old liberal arts college professor, and here I am like singing about clits and stuff. They're like, what the hell is this? And it was just like, it's like you said, it was very exciting. Like oh, okay. Like, I don't know if you're going to like this, but here we go.
You've already paid for the ticket. Yeah.
I already got your money. So here we go. But yeah, I think that was kind of my journey from like, I went from doing musical theater to doing one-person shows to doing stand-up, and I've kind of just like stuck to that ever since. And I do musical comedy within my stand-up. I should mention that to anybody who is not aware of my work, so you don't go look and be like, this isn't stand-up, this is Bo Burnham shit. Like, what are you talking? But yeah, it was basically like my first stand-up special that I like consider strictly stand-up is I did Corn Baby, which I put out. The album came out in October, and then the special came out in May, 1 year later, strictly because it's like that's how long it took to edit the video. The video just took longer to edit than the audio, which I kind of knew would be the case, but I didn't fully grasp just how long editing video was going to take. But that's out on YouTube. I like that a lot because I do talk a lot about like my middle school, high school dating and just like the like trauma stuff with my family as well. Like one of my favorite jokes from that is I talk about like I did get my period very young and my dad thought that I was pooping my pants. And so he got really upset with me. But then my mom came home and was like, you're a woman now. So I basically kind of like used this joke to reveal the fact that like I had internalized from a very young age that women are disgusting. Because it's like you have one person saying like this thing that you did is gross and this other person saying like this thing that you did is what makes you a woman. And so you're a woman now, but I'm 8. So it's like I'm not really.
You were 8?
Yeah, I was 8. Yeah. I mean, I have early menopause to look forward to, so I'm excited about that. Sorry.
No.
That's probably not something I should say publicly, but I think it'll be great when it just shuts down, you know?
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Your dad was mad that you were pooping?
He thought he thought the period was poop. Like, I think because I was so young, it didn't click for him that I had started my period. He thought I pooped my pants. Which I ate. It's like, yeah, that would
You're
be.
like, please don't
poop your pants. You're 8. Yeah. But I was just confused. I'm like, yeah, I guess I pooped. Because it was like, for me, I'm like, but how could I poop? I didn't feel myself poop. Like, you feel yourself poop. And I didn't, like, I just suddenly had this.
Are you asking me?
Yeah, I'm asking you. I'm like, do you feel? Because I normally feel something happen. I mean, we're getting older, so maybe it's just.
Maybe we don't.
Maybe you don't anymore, but I feel like.
Do you still feel some, like, where are you now with like women being a woman being disgusting?
Oh, I think I feel just like furiously in opposition of that. I'm like, women are awesome. Like, I feel like one of my friends I was helping move recently and I was wearing heels because I'm an idiot. But like, I was carrying this heavy thing. My friend's just like, look at her. She can do anything we can do and in heels. And I was like, shut. But it's like, I do think to some degree, like, yes, like I think that just our ability to work in groups and collaborate and just to like kind of cut through ego and get things done and our compassion and our vulnerability is really unique and special and beautiful and something to be celebrated. And I think that I really empathize and feel for men because I think a lot of the qualities that are tied to being a woman and tied to womanhood, they are kind of taught to run away from and to push off. Whereas I think that like in all of us, there's the duality of the masculine and the feminine. And that's how you are a full person. And so to shut those things off just sounds exhausting.
Yeah.
It sounds really exhausting.
Yeah, I think on both sides, both genders, like we get that from both sides of shutting things down.
Yeah.
So I feel like it's hard to embody both for people. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel that. I get scared to be masculine sometimes.
Yeah, because I think that there's it's interesting because it's like in the same way that like men are taught to not be feminine, we're also taught that like embodying masculinity is a negative thing. Whereas I think that like there's a time and place for both qualities. Yeah. And I think it's just like being able to discern what the situation at hand calls for.
Yeah.
I think it was harder for me to embody the feminine. Like it took like speaking, not necessarily in looks, but like the emotional nurturing side, because it was the nurturing side that got taken advantage of as a young person.
Yeah.
And then so it was like this harder shell got created to where I had to learn how to let that feminine come back as I got older.
Yeah. I feel like similarly to that, it was like for me, the feminine part that I have struggled with is feeling an emotion without having to intellectualize it.
Yeah.
Because I definitely take after my father, and that like my dad always taught me, like, if you have a bad feeling, you just put that in a box and push it away until you like blow up.
Advice ever.
Yeah, and so it's a thing where it's like
It's a wild thing to teach.
Yeah, it is the wrong thing to teach.
It's
like,
literally shut your emotions down.
Yeah, just and I feel like it's like if I have an emotion and I feel myself having an emotion, if I can explain the emotion or I can understand it, I'll let myself feel it. But if I can't, I still push it down. And that's something I'm really still working on, because it's like you can't always intellectualize an emotion. Sometimes you feel something and there's not an immediate explanation as to why you feel it. But to not feel it, it's just going to get worse and worse every time, at least in my experience. But
I think it's a balance of both.
Yeah.
Of being able to, like, if if you're more logic brain and intellectual and that's how you understand your world, it's okay for you to use that to understand your emotions. But you want to let both happen. Because there's some times where, I think I used to do that. And it's when emotions come up that you can't deny anymore because I'm very somatic. You know, it's there, but it's not making sense up here yet. And that's where we can do the disconnect. And it's starting to learn, like, just to feel through the emotion. You don't have to have any thoughts or memories or anything going with it, but it's just you feel it in your body and can you be with it? And that's hard and scary when you were taught the opposite too.
No, it is super scary, and I think it's like nothing feels more overwhelming than, like, I think sometimes, like, that'll happen to me, like you said, like the disconnect moment, especially if I'm around other people or somebody that I care about and they're like, what's going on? And I can't explain it. I'm like, I feel this way and I don't know why. So I need you to give me time to explain why.
Beautiful.
But it's like, I feel like I'm getting better at being able to express it. Cause in the past I used to be like, no, nothing's wrong. But it's like, everything's fine. I'm doing great.
Yep.
to say the name of the pot, but I, throw it in. No, I'm proud of myself in terms of, like, I'd say over the past 6 months, I've gotten better at, like, I can say the emotion. I don't necessarily have to know the why yet, but it is like, it really goes against everything I was taught.
What got you there of being able to just say it?
Yeah.
I think the first step was getting divorced, and that shouldn't be a funny thing. It's not funny, but I do think, the relationship that I was in with my ex-husband was perpetuating my tendency to push emotions down because, unfortunately, in the dynamic that we had developed, when I would express emotions, it would usually, like, me having a feeling about something would be met with, like, another bad feeling, which I know is part of, it's a cyclical thing that can happen in relationships. Whereas, like, I kind of had to just, like, one interaction at a time, teach myself that, like, I can express an emotion and nothing bad's going to happen. Like, and I think that,
how do you teach yourself? That's a hard thing to do.
I think it was just like, I had to just try to do it for the first time. And then I think that, like, the first time trying to do it and not getting a negative response, I was like, okay, well, that's evidence that that's not going to happen again. And so then I was kind of just like, every other time where I would have a feeling, I would kind of check in with myself and be like, let me try to say what I'm feeling, or, like, say that I'm feeling something and maybe I don't know why yet. And just kind of, like, over time, it's still really hard, especially if it's somebody I don't know as well. Or like, I do have a close friend of mine that I, like, said that I was feeling and they did react negatively. And I think it's like, it's not like donezo forever, but it's like, it is a thing where it's like, I do feel fear about expressing feelings to that person again. Cause it's like, when I feel like it's like when you're somebody who struggles to express to begin with and you do express and it's met in a negative way, it almost makes you go like, okay, I can't go there with this person. But
Trust
it's like,
them.
I'm trying to not immediately write people off in that way. Cause I think it's like, sometimes it's a misunderstanding and I'm not, I think, really it's something where it's like, I just have to, like, make an effort to try to do it every time. And sometimes I don't. Sometimes I just... I know.
But what you're describing is so hard to do and so intuitive of, like, you wanting that for yourself. Like, to just... Because I imagine some of the experiences of sharing and having negative responses came from childhood.
Yeah.
And that's where all the patterns are getting laid down. Yeah. Like, we're subconsciously learning, like, make ourselves smaller, or put our feelings down because it's not okay with, we're hurting someone, or it's a problem in some way. And so to just try to you're very intuitive to hear you saying, I had these negative experiences, so I'm trying to give myself new ones. That's where healing happens. Is like every time. And even when you are met with someone who may have, some feelings around what you share, saying, okay, I'll give them the benefit. Like, that's where, like, you get to then put it into action, this learning that my feelings are okay, even though someone's having this response.
Yeah.
And
I think the thing that I've really appreciated and that's really helped me a lot is it's like, a lot of times, like, somebody's response, especially like, you know, like my parents, however many years ago, I can't take that back, but it's like, if now in the next, like within the past 5 years, in the next 5 years, I express an emotion to somebody and they react negatively to that emotion, like that could very much be the result of what they learned in childhood.
Exactly.
And their child. So it's like, sometimes you can just have like two people's childhood traumas just kind of like going.
That is the majority of the time.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
With any interaction, what is happening.
Yeah. And so I think it's just like, I think the other thing that I try to do as well is like when I do express an emotion and somebody doesn't get mad at me, I like oftentimes, like maybe not in that exact moment, but like a day later or like later on that day, I try to be like, thank you so much for like having like I try to make sure I thank them because I want the person to know like this is something that I really need from you as like a person in my life, and it's something that's very valuable to me, just so that they take mental note of like, oh, this is how to engage with this person.
Is it hard for you to ask for that on the front end?
Yes. I feel like it's hard. It's, okay, especially romantically.
I was going to say, how is dating now?
Yeah.
I would say for me romantically, it's hard for me to ask for anything I need, and I really need to get better about it, because it's like I am the queen of I will give and give and give and give and give and give and give, and I will create like a idealized version of who the person I'm dating could be in my mind. And then like 2-3 months in, I look at what's really been going on and I'm like, wait.
Oh no, not 2 to 3 months.
And the thing is, it used to be longer. And I'm like, wait, what's happening here? And then a lot of times I'll feel kind of like stupid and like I showed up more than was appropriate for the way for the energy that I'm getting from the other person.
Yeah. Do you feel like codependency is something you've dealt with?
Yes.
Okay.
But I think that like, I would say with like my past, probably like 3 out of 5 of my past exes, very much like, I think they wanted a caregiver more than a partner.
Yeah.
And I was really good at stepping into that role. So I'm trying to like, when I'm dating now, I'm trying to be very careful not to just like be a caregiver again. Cause it's like, it's a role that I fulfill so well, but it's like, I can't be a 30-something-year-old man's mother. Like that's not
what you're going to get paid for it, bro.
Yeah. I mean,
the caregiver part of you, it's a beautiful part of ourselves. I think it's the nurturing part that we see. Part of it is this feminine part of ourselves that can nurture. We forget to nurture ourselves. You got to start there.
Yeah.
But what is it when have you been able to name what it is you're like seeking by caregiving for, like over caregiving by partners?
I think it's like, it's almost a thing where it's like, I really care about this person and I can see that they need help. And I know that like the amount of time it would take me to help them with this thing would take like 5 to 10 minutes out of my day, where I feel like it would take them like 2 days to do, because it's just like, you know, like I move quick, I work quick, but then I also look at what I'm doing and I realize that I'm perhaps enabling some weaponized incompetence, and that's not great. Like
get there faster, son. Let's go.
Yeah, I would say I am the best example of like intellectually I know everything that I need to work on, but I would say like as far as my actions and the actual follow through emotionally, it's real. Like if I like somebody, it is really hard for me to like give up on them.
So what are you getting by the caregiving that you're giving up if you were to choose not to? Like, what is it? Is it their approval or safety and connection? They're not going to leave. Like,
I think it's just like, it's like, I wonder if it's almost like I get to spend time with them in a way that isn't like, I feel like it's like, I think I'm scared to be like, hey, I would like to see you more. Let's spend time together. Whereas like if they ask me to help with something.
So you need them to need you.
I think you might be onto something there.
That's part of codependency, and it's part of when we are over helping and doing. It feels good to be needed. There's nothing wrong with that, but when you're using it as a way to try to create safety in relationships at the expense of yourself, that's where it becomes. That's
when it's not good. Yeah. And I guess it's the thing where it's like it doesn't necessarily feel like it's at the expense of myself at this point in my life, but I know that that's been my pattern in the past.
Well, it's almost like that's how you're creating value in the relationship.
Yeah, and I think honestly, so it's like. I was like, I didn't come on here to just drag my ex-husband for the whole hour, but I feel like when we first got together, I felt very celebrated for like my other qualities, like my attributes as like a comedian and a writer and like a very loving person and a creative person and like this, like just the qualities that make me who I am. But towards the end, within the last 2 to 3 years of the relationship, I think it was very much an energy of like, if you don't do X, I will leave you. And a lot of it was related to like household labor and like being at home and not taking shows and just kind of like, it was way more of a control thing than like I actually want to be around you. So I think it's like, I think I internalized some of that because I don't think I used to be as acts of service based as I am now. And I think it's like, as I'm doing it, I'm like, wait, why am I like, this is not what? And I think it's just like, it's so ingrained because of like being in a, like 10-year relationship with somebody who like my value to them was that.
Yeah.
And I also like, I think that I like, a lot of people ask like, why do people stay in situations like that as long as they do? I think that I wanted the person back from the beginning.
Yeah. Yes.
And I was like, if I clean enough dishes, if I like do like this person will come, but it's like that person was like so long gone that it was like, I had to eventually just be like, okay, this isn't like making me happy anymore. And it was extremely codependent at the end in terms of like, I have a memory of like, I came home from like doing 2 shows. I'm exhausted. And there was probably like every dish in the house in the sink. And he's just like, what are we eating for dinner? I haven't eaten yet. And I was just like, it felt like at a certain point, it felt like living with a kid rather than a partner. And so I was like, I definitely don't want to put myself in a situation like that again. But I do think that like, I like if somebody needs help with something, knowing that like I'm somebody that they feel like they can go to help.
Yeah.
But I had never intellectualized that could be why.
Are you in therapy?
I am in therapy.
Oh,
yes.
nice.
I feel like my therapist has helped me a lot in terms of like, I like definitely the feeling an emotion without needing to intellectualize it and being comfortable expressing it. That's a big thing we've been working on. As well as just like, I think with dating, he had told me the approach of like, cause like I said, I do have a tendency to like see all the good and like ignore all the
those rose-colored glasses. Yeah.
But yeah, he wanted me to approach it like, I think the phrase we used was like a National Geographic journalist observing like animals in the wild. Like, let me just see, how do I feel when I'm around this person? Like,
I like that.
What is being asked of me? What are they bringing to the table? Like, and just trying to be as objective as possible, which is, I will say, something I really struggle with. I really struggle with the objectivity because I think that like, I do get like swept up in the romance of it all. And then I think like 2 or 3 months in, I'll be like, wait a ding dang second. Like, what's going on here? But yeah, I would say it's like, it's one of those things where it's like, I feel like I have dated a couple people since getting divorced and it's been fun and cool, but it's like, I'm trying to go super, super slow because I know I still have all this internalized crap.
Yeah.
So it's like, I'm trying to like not get, it's like, if you have like a serious, I think even if you had like a serious surgery or like medical procedure, you wouldn't go straight back to running while you would let your leg heal. And I feel like it's kind of similar. Like, like I know that relationships are a classroom and like physical therapy but it's like, I'm trying to date as if it's physical therapy rather than like I'm doing the Boston Marathon. Like I'm trying to not get ahead of the plot, so to speak. But
I like that.
Does any of that like relationship stuff show up in your relationship with an audience?
Ooh, does any of that relationship stuff show up in my relationship with an audience? I need them to need me. I know. Like, you have to love me. No, I would say definitely like I've gotten better about this, but I think that like when I was first starting in comedy, I would sometimes like shift my set or like shift my jokes based on the room I was in, because I would rather make the audience happy than be edgy or controversial or like, and I don't think what I do is like super edgy to begin with, but it's like
You're just wearing bright colors.
Yeah, the bright colors are like devil, like, but I do think it's like I try to show up as myself as much as possible, even when it's not comfortable. And I think that what I'm trying to get better at is like, I think that whereas in relationships in the past and with audiences in the past, I would try to be like, what do you like? Let me be that.
Yeah.
Now I'm just like, this is who I am and you're going to freaking like it. And if you don't, I'm not going to not be who I am. I think that that's kind of like my answer to the question. I would say is like, the shift has been that. Like,
That's
I'm trying
a huge
to show
place to be.
Yeah.
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 Did you experience that, Amber?
Definitely.
Like-
Still like shifting more into that, but so much better about being like I used to do comedy and stare at the one person not laughing and being like, I'm going to try my hardest until that one person laughs. But now I don't notice those people not laughing.
Yeah.
Some weird people will be like, I saw someone not laughing. I'm like, okay.
Yeah. You saw
What,
one
people
person.
say that?
Yeah, some weirdos.
Yeah. Some haters.
Jealous. I want to say jealous. Not to sound like my mom, but they're jealous.
I thought they were laughing on the inside.
All right. No, I don't know about that.
We'd never let you in the VIP, okay? You're a hater, baby.
Hater. No, I don't know. I'm focused more on the people that do like me, and that's including me.
Ooh.
You know?
What was that?
I just was like, I just love, because it's like, yeah, I am trying to focus more on the people who do like me. And I think like my biggest, so like with the dating thing, again, to bring it all back to you, my most recent on again, off again dating style, the colloquial term would be a situationship, as it were. I have had to come to terms with the fact that like it was so ironic, because I think to begin with, I liked this person way more than they liked me. Like I just got there faster, and that was very uncomfortable for me. And that was a situation in the past where I would have been like, what do I do to make them like me? Oh no. Whereas like me just accepting like, oh, they do like me, but they just like don't like me to the level I like them right now. Let me just kind of like put some of that hyperfixation energy back towards myself and back towards like other things.
Oh, yeah.
Amazing.
I feel like now we're kind of getting more on the same page. Whereas if I would have done what I usually do, I probably would have sent them running by being a lot. And
You're so cute. What are you talking about? I love it.
but I mean, I'm glad that I'm cute, but I do think it's like, I just...
I meant that in a good way. Like your awareness, like that's some good insight to have about how you go about relationships, and to know not everybody catches feelings at the same rate.
And I think I also just like, I really have a problem with like, as soon as I like somebody, I'm like, I need your blood oath that we're going to be buried in the same cemetery. And then that part of my brain, I'm like, whoa, chill out. Because like, I don't think I really believe that, but there is that part of my brain that's like, if they aren't going to marry you, if you're not going to be old in rocking chairs, this is a waste of your time. When it's like, I do actually believe more than that crazy thought that, you know, likes to bounce around, that all relationships are sort of just like the classroom of like being your authentic self. You know what I mean? So it's like, even if you are in a relationship that doesn't work out, and this can be like with a friend, with romantic, like any type of relationship, like it's teaching you how to be around other people and how to be good to other people. So it's like, for me to get into, you know, like a little situation and like behave differently than I did every other time I've been in a similar situation. It's still, I'm learning something, even if it doesn't ultimately work out, because it is kind of in that place where it's like, I don't know, I can't feel anything but like gratitude for making a different choice.
Yeah.
Whereas like, I think part of like why I stayed with my ex of 10 years for so long was it was like, I did feel this urgency of like, I want like this version of the relationship we had at the beginning. And if I do this, this, and this, we can get this thing back. And like, I don't know who I am without this thing. It's very much that codependency land.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of that was like, I was also having, you know, put into my mind by my ex that like, I would not be able to go on without this person. It's kind of just unlearning that, and also getting comfortable with just like the time alone and the time like devoid of other people is, I think, just the duality of it. Like, I think that like, I think it's a middle ground of like, I know that people who are newly single, sometimes they're like, I'm just going to like be by myself, solitude. And it's like, I don't necessarily think that like being in total solitude is the answer, but I also don't think that like jumping back into something crazy is the answer either. Like, I think you kind of have to just like,
it's a balance.
Do a balance of both. Yes.
Yeah. Always a balance.
What do you think like young Jamie would think of the place you're in right now with?
She'd be like,
the eye roll.
She'd be like, what? We're a redhead again? No, I'm sorry. I had this time in high school, I did a really bad box dye red that dyed my hair orange. They'd be like, you're a redhead and it worked out. I think that would be very exciting. Because I think when I was 15, I was an idiot. So like, that's probably the first thing that I would say. I also think that she would be proud of me because I do think like, you know, and this is like no shade to my ex, no shade to any of my exes, but I do think I've been in the process of breaking a generational curse, because I do think a lot of the people in relationships in my family are of the mindset that like we stay together no matter what.
Yeah.
And it's like to look at the situation I was in and say, I love this person, I care about this person, but like this doesn't make me happy anymore. It doesn't make them happy anymore. So I have to pull the trigger on this. I think it's a really amazing thing. And I think that like it, you know, like it starts with, or like it starts with me, and it like hopefully continues. If I have kids of my own, or just like, you know, like if my cousins have kids, hopefully we can instill in them that like, you don't have to stay in an unhealthy situation just because that's how you were raised. Like, even without being raised religious, that's a very Indiana mindset of like, if you're married, like we're in this, no matter what, we make this work. And it's like, I just think it leads to so much more like high cortisol stress and just like unhappiness than it's
for
worth.
everyone,
for everyone,
the kids, everybody
in that house is like, oh my God, this is too much. And I just think that, I think that like whether I like have a partner in the similar sense again, or whether I just am like single girl for life, like I don't know what the future holds for me, but it's like, I know that I'm not going to stay in a situation that drains me so much and makes me so unhappy. Like, and I think that that's something that was very much something that little Jamie thought she had to do.
Yeah.
We keep this person with us no matter what. And it's like, no, because like one of my favorite things my best friend says is like all the cool memories that you have with a person, like, yes, they're a part of that, but also like you were there. Aww. You were part of why that was cool. So it's like,
that's nice.
You don't have to get rid of all those memories because you were there and you learned something from them. So it's like, I do think it's, that would be the big thing that she'd probably be like shocked, like, and kind of like, oh my God, I get divorced. I'd be like, yeah. And it's great.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. We are wrapping up, and would you like to sorry, yes. Would you like to ask the question? We can just,
the same one.
Yeah. Why not?
Okay. Yeah. So what's the worst advice you've ever received?
The worst advice I've ever received is probably that. And it's like, I quoted in my song, but just the advice like, oh, he's just being mean to you because he likes you.
Oh my God, yeah.
It's horrible
Oh, my
advice.
shoulders just got tense.
That
Yeah,
up there.
like boy, girl, like any person, if they're being mean to you, they're being mean to you and they're negging you and they are not letting you shine as bright as you could. And that's just not somebody you should have around you unless you're doing a taped roast battle at a comedy club. That's when it's okay to be mean to your friend. Otherwise, no.
Facts. Can I just say on that, my therapist in a recent, like I was saying that someone did something and they were like, she's mean. And my little self was just like, she is mean. Like, I feel like as adults, we don't say that a lot of like, they're mean. That's a mean guy.
Yeah. But I just think I think it's hard because like in the industry that we work in, being a mean guy, a lot of times you can like have
That's their personality.
It's part of my little shtick that I do on stage. And the little shtick I do on stage that was mean of me to say. But I do think
Well,
I do think that like who you are on stage and who you're on off stage, there can be some similarities, but it's like just be kind to people.
Yes.
Like just be kind to people, you know? And I say that like I'm touring with Shelly right now, who's in like the top 10 roast battlers in the country. So she is like, she says, I'm one of the meanest girls in the world. And it's, but so kind, has never been anything but kind to me. So it's like, I think that it's like, there's a time and a place for snarky remarks, but it's like people who are being snarky to you all the time. It just pushes your heart down. It just doesn't feel good. We got to lift each other up, you know?
Amen. A woman. And what's the...
Well, it sounds like you kind of flipped it because the next question was, what's the best advice? So it looks like you got some good advice from the bad, but what's the best advice you've ever received?
The best advice I've ever received is that, I think this is something my roommate said to me, and it's that, like any choice that you make is gonna get you where you want to be as long as you are moving in kindness and in love, and in kindness and love to yourself.
Yeah.
It's when you're being unkind to yourself in an effort to be kind to someone else that you set yourself back. And I'm misquoting that horribly, but it was like, she basically, like when everything was kind of falling apart around me within my marriage, she was just like, you know, like I really challenge you. I want you to make kind and loving decisions for Jamie over the next year. And that was kind of just
so
what I
sweet.
needed. I feel like we got so heavy and sad, but I hope that it helps people to hear that, you know, like you look at your choices and if your choices are not being kind and loving to yourself, you got to make different choices. There's no wrong choices, but it's like you, the listener at home, deserve to be the adult that you didn't have as a kid.
Oh, that's so true. Yes. T-shirt. Hey, oh my God. If everybody was mandatory, go to therapy and be a server, the world would be so good.
I agree.
Oh, I've said that before.
Oh my
Everyone
God.
should have to be a server at some point in their life. You'll be a lot nicer to people.
I think all throughout life, like you got to go serve your 2 months, you know, just to remember.
Yeah. Like if you're getting a little too fresh with Clarissa at the diner, it's time to clock back in, baby.
Yeah.
You're on morning shift at the coffee shop.
And then Clarissa gets her turn to be the customer.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And she gets to be like, I want a oat milk foam latte. Meanwhile, she doesn't even know how to use the coffee thing. She's like, what the hell is it?
She gets to be like, I know I'm crazy, but can I have ketchup with my fries? Do you guys know what I'm saying? You don't
Yeah,
know
I know what you're saying.
You know what I'm saying?
I worked at a coffee shop. That was my first job in Chicago. And like simultaneously, I was a waitress in Jefferson Park where no one tips. So yes, I know what you're talking about.
I know I'm crazy. I'm like, I'm going to fight you in the street.
It's going to be on site.
Can you tell everybody where they can find you?
Yeah.
Everybody, this camera. You can find me on the internet at Jamie Schreiner Sings. That is the best place to find me on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. And I would love for you to find me. Please find me.
Can you spell that just in case?
Yes, sure. JAMIESHRINER and then Sings SINGS.
Nice.
Beautiful. Thank you for
Thanks for being
for
here.
having me.
Yes.
Thank you for
Yeah,
having me.
you're
It's been
amazing.
lovely.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to I'm Fine, It's Fine podcast. My name is Amber Autry. I'm a comedian based here in Nashville and internationally touring. You can find me on all platforms at Amber Autry Comedy.
And I am Melanie Reese. I'm a trauma therapist here in Nashville. You can find me across all platforms at Trauma Therapy Nashville.
We really appreciate you listening so much. And if you want to give a little extra for free, make sure you're liking, subscribing, rating, reviewing, sharing with your friends, talking about it to literally everyone you see, because it helps so much. And we're so grateful for the extra effort.
And if you like what you're hearing and you want some bonus material, that includes interviews with other practitioners and all the juicy stuff that Amber and I talk about that doesn't go into the normal podcast. We'd love to have you subscribe. You can find the link in our bio, and $5 a month, you can do it.